My name is Alex Howard. For nearly 20 years, I've been a therapist here in London. I am deeply passionate about helping people make real, positive change in their lives. Having been through therapy myself at different stages of my own life, I know how transformative it can be. That's why I started In Therapy, a series that follows the stories of brave participants as they go on therapeutic journeys with me. Join us as we go behind the scenes as people grapple with issues like depression, anxiety, and chronic illness, and join my mission to break the stigma around mental health and asking for help. This is In Therapy with me, Alex Howard. Hi, Hannah. How have you been doing? Talk me through how things have been.
I've been feeling very angry and frustrated, and it feels a bit all-consuming at the moment.
Do you have a sense of what the anger and frustration is about?
It's just like daily life. I'm just finding it really hard right now.
In terms of both your energy and recovery journey and or sort of just the environment around you?
Everything, yeah. I think my symptoms-wise, energy-wise, that's number one. And then I feel like just the future just feels bleak. I'm just finding it hard to.
When you look to the future that feels bleak, what is it that you're seeing?
Not being able to enjoy life. I don't really know why I'm feeling this so strongly now. Things have been like this for a while, but I just feel it a lot at the moment.
How would you say your energy the last sort of 6 weeks or so since we last spoke? How would you say that has been compared to the last 6 months? Has it been the same? Has it been more? Has it been less? What's been the sort of general trajectory?
My symptoms feel harder to manage right now. I think that could be to do with the supplements taking with Sana. It might just be
Do you know what the timeline is in terms of the detox that you're doing, or the sort of immune-based work that you're doing with Sana?
No. So the way we've done it is because I'm like a new patient of hers, because I switched.
Yeah.
She thought it'd be better to, instead of schedule me in a new appointment and give me a load of long list of supplements, to just do one at a time. And I just basically email her when I've got onto the new supplement successfully, if you see what I mean. So I'm not sure where the end point is just yet, but I'm due to email her soon.
So I would drop her a note and just say that we spoke, and I made the point that it sounded like that your system was feeling the load of what you're doing. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to stop. It might, but sometimes just knowing why you're not feeling great takes away a lot of the stress and the anxiety about it. Because if it is because of the supplements, it may be that you need to be on them for a period of time to help do that piece of work, but at least you understand what's happening. And I think, so to take, for example, the point about looking into the future and the future looking bleak, that's normally a result of not being able to see things changing. Whereas if you understand that why you're not feeling great, there's a sort of end point in that, then there's actually optimism and hope that the future's going to look different.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I feel better already just from kind of talking about that.
In many ways, it may be at this point that we're actually getting to the real crux of what we need to work with on the nutrition side. And that's actually quite exciting, but it's also that work can take some time, and it can be a bit bumpy on that road, but at least you understand then what it is that's happening.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I think I wasn't thinking about that enough, probably.
You know what can also happen is when we start adding in a couple of supplements and we think, oh, well, it can't be that. It can't just be a few supplements that I'm taking. And I'm here to tell you it absolutely can be a few supplements that you're taking. There's a reason why we add things in slowly. And there's a reason why we don't just pummel someone with loads of stuff, because it's having an impact. It's having an effect on what's happening in your body.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
One of the things that you were asking about in your email is you were saying that you're wondering about reconnecting with your dad and sort of how to do that and what you want from that and what that might look like. Say a bit more about that.
I keep going through periods of time where I feel like I want to maybe try and talk to him again. When I'm like feeling bad physically, I feel like I couldn't manage it. But then, when I'm feeling a little better, I feel like, maybe I could, and maybe I do want to. I think I'm just worried about how it could impact me if I didn't feel like it went well.
What do you think you want from reconnecting? Like what's the motivation there?
So like the positive thing that could come from it would just be to feel a connection with him. I think it would be quite a limited one, at least for now, but there are definitely things that we've got in common that we can connect on. And I guess I want to see if that's possible, even if the kind of relationship that I wanted maybe in the past isn't, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Where do you have any idea of where he's at the moment? Like if he's in a sort of good place or not, or what do you know?
I don't totally know. I feel like confident by the fact that he's kind of being able to respect like that boundary that I said that I needed space for quite a long time now. And in the past, he's never been able to respect boundaries, but he's maintained that one. My biggest fear is that he'd ask me why I'd not spoken to him for so long, even though we'd had this very in-depth conversation about that, and he even apologized for being a bully towards me a couple of years ago. But the thing is, he has a tendency to kind of say that those things never happened. Like sometimes I'll think, oh, finally there's an understanding, we've made some progress, and then a couple of weeks later he'll deny that conversation, or he won't be able to remember it. And I think that would just hurt a lot if that was the case this time.
Are you familiar with the term gaslighting?
Yeah.
That's gaslighting, right? It's when someone, it's a version of when someone causes you to question your own truth and your own reality in terms of what's happening. I think my sense is, it's not my place to tell you, what to do and when to do it. I think what is really important is that if you decide you want to reconnect and you reach out, that you just be very clear in where your boundaries are, like what is okay and what isn't okay for you. And so if, for example, what happens is you start to feel that you're being bullied, or you start to feel that you're being gaslit, or that he's starting to go into a denial of what's happened, then that needs to be a sign that it's not happening on the terms that it needs to for you.
Right. Yeah. I think, I definitely agree with that. I'm definitely not worried about him behaving like aggressively, or him being like bullying in that sense, because I know how badly he does actually want to see me, and he really does want to like have a connection with me. So I think he'd be on good behavior, but there
are also subtle versions, right? And
that's the thing. Like he can be very critical, and that's what I'd worry about.
Relationships need to be a two-way thing, and there needs to be a sort of two-way mutual meeting of people in the middle, as it were. But when someone's acted in an abusive or bullying way, I think particularly when one's done that in a parental position, they sort of forfeit their right to dictate the terms of that relationship, at least for a time. And I think given the history of what's happened, I think it's important that you are very clear in what is okay and what isn't okay for you. And saying yes to you may mean saying no to him. And, you know, you have to, at this point, you have to teach him how to treat you, because he's treated you in ways that have not been respectful and have not been supportive. By allowing any of those behaviors to happen again, you're effectively tacitly agreeing to that behavior. So you have to be quite ruthless and quite rigid for at least for a time in terms of how things need to be. And he's either able to engage in that way or he's not. And I'm not sure that's really in your hands. What's in your hands is being very clear and very upfront and very protective about the boundaries that you need.
Okay. Yeah. I definitely feel that that's how I want to be as well.
That's also part of how you heal the little girl in you that was traumatized and afraid, that you make it very clear that you're standing up for her.
I guess I wouldn't really know how to explain that to him if it got to that point, if it was too draining, because he just couldn't. It's hard when he can't see what I see, so I don't know how to explain it.
But I don't think your job is to help him understand it. Your job is to express how you feel. It's his job to understand it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like you can't be responsible for someone else getting how you feel. You can be responsible for articulating and communicating how you feel. But if he's not able to make the effort or take the leap to care enough to understand, that also tells you something important.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
You know, if you're finding yourself giving more consideration to his feelings than he's giving to your feelings in the history of what's happened, then it's already starting on the wrong foot.
Right. Yeah. Got it.
You're the child that was hurt. You're not responsible for how he feels.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you think about it from that frame, how does that feel?
Yeah, it feels good. I feel like at last I've got an element of like I can approach it from a safe distance and on my terms, and it feels really good.
Yeah. You should make sure that you let yourself have the power in this interaction, at least for now. You know, he has to trust after what's happened. Trust is something that has to be earned, and it has to be hard earned. You don't just give when you've experienced what you've experienced, you don't just give someone the trust. You have to earn that. And as much as there's the little girl in you that longs for it all to be better and all to be okay and wish it hasn't happened and wants to forgive him and wants to be in connection, the adult in you has to recognize that may not be possible.
Yeah.
And it's being ruthless in a sense in standing up for and protecting the little girl in you.
Yeah. No, I understand that, definitely. Yeah. I know that it might not work how I want it. And I know even if like I do have did stay in touch with him, like it would be in a very certain way, you know. Yeah. There'd be a lot of boundaries for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. To have a trusting, close, intimate, connected relationship requires both parties to be capable of that. And your desire for that and your being capable of that and you're wanting that is not enough for that to happen.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And we don't know where he is. We don't know, you know, it's possible things, of course, I believe people can change. So it's possible that we don't know, but one has to assume that things haven't changed until there's enough evidence to demonstrate that they have.
Yeah.
But hopefully thinking about it this way takes away some of the sense of fear around it, because you realize that you do have the power and you do have the control in the situation.
Yeah. I definitely feel less fear around those things and more fear about what he will say that will trigger a lot of feelings of like anger and all those things that I've been processing. That it will just bring it all back, and that it won't be nice.
And that's where you need to give yourself permission to end the conversation if you need to.
Yeah.
And if need be, say, when you say that, I need you to know that how that makes me feel is this, and it makes me feel that way because of this, and that's not helpful or good for me, and I'm still processing the history, and I'm not willing to add any more to it. So if that means I need to go now.
Okay.
Maybe that's it for 6 months. And then he gets another go.
Yeah.
But it's really balancing the vulnerable place in you that wants to connect with the adult place in you which needs to protect that.
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean that you don't have any connection. My point is not that therefore you just kind of completely disconnect, but it's being very protective of yourself in the way that you do connect.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense. I think I was feeling like quite good in the sense that up till recently, I felt way too angry to even consider this ever being possible.
Right.
So it does feel like progress in that sense.
And whether or not you act on it now or not is actually less important in some ways, in the recognition that things are moving, things are healing in you. And that's really great. It shows that the work that you're doing is working, because how you fundamentally feel is changing. Yeah,
I think it definitely is. Like, a lot has changed when I look back from the start of the year. So it feels good. Feel good about that.
Good. What questions do you have to say that we haven't?
This frustration that I'm feeling is just like, I feel I'm not able to like be in the present right now, and I'm just not enjoying myself, and it's like consuming everything. And I feel like I'm letting myself feel this anger and frustration, but things definitely shift a lot more than they did before I was allowing myself to feel it. But it's very, I don't know, it doesn't feel like good. I feel very like I'm being very negative really at the moment, like in a real like rut with it.
Yeah. So I think there's a real balance at the moment of finding the balance of letting yourself have the anger and frustration, and that has its place, with also not letting your mind spiral off into overwhelm and anxiety and negativity, like using the stop on those spiraling thoughts whilst letting yourself feel the feelings and emotions that are there. So it's that sort of two-pronged approach. How much are you using stop? Have you been using the stop process over the last month or two?
Yeah, but I do it like in the morning, when I wake up. Yeah, should probably do it a little bit more often.
I think you probably need a bit more. I think particularly on those patterns where you're sort of spiraling out into, negativity, and it can't change, it won't change. Like, they're patterns that I think you can definitely work on more.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I think will just help things settle down a bit more to a bit more of a steady place.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
It's my pleasure. And have a good Christmas and New Year time, and I'll talk to you in January.
Okay, cool. You too.
Thanks, Hannah.
Bye.
Bye. Hope you found this week's episode of In Therapy helpful. We'll continue to follow Hannah's journey with her dad, and also to see how her work on the nutritional side unfolds. Next week, we're going to be catching up with David. We'll hear how he's been getting on with beginning to connect more with his emotions. We'll also start to explore some sleep issues that he's been having as well. Here's a taste of what's coming up next week. Good to see you. How have you been doing?
Yeah, a bit up and down. I've slept like sort of 10 hours in the last 12 days.
Oh my God. Often what's going on with sleep issues is what happens at night is often a reflection of what's going on during the day. So if we're increasingly sort of agitated and irritated during the day, we find it harder to switch off and sleep at night.